Hello, this is Angelica Yingst, and you're listening to Centered, grounded conversations about the metaphysical. This is Angelica Yingst with a new Centered Q&A episode. Today I'm talking about tarot, and I'm answering a question about my own spiritual work, the work of a healer on the day-to-day basis. I often will hold questions till I have enough of one topic, or at least tangentially related topic, to kind of make an episode about it. So this is a Q&A episode about tarot. And so if you like tarot, this is the episode for you. If you're not so interested, maybe you'll find something interesting about it. But this is about, layouts and significators and things like that. So that's what's being covered. I also wanted to tell you that I've been told that some people don't know what I do one-on-one, what I do as classes, things like that. I have a website. I have a newsletter. I'm not great about the newsletter, but I try to be a little more regular than I used to be, maybe twice a month. But at the end of this episode, the last question answered, I have basically a promo for all my events, what I do, what I'm offering. So if you learn better by listening, maybe listen to the end. I'm not great at selling myself, so I'm just telling you what I'm offering, and you can read more about it always at themoonandstone.com. So just enjoy this episode of Centered. I have recently received a number of questions that people have asked me in lives or just when we're talking about tarot that I thought I would bring up because I think they're great questions. So someone asked me, what is a significator and why don't I talk about them in my book? So I do talk about them in my second book, The Complete Tarot Layouts. And the reason I don't is because I haven't used them a ton. And that's just because I kind of use that center starting the number one position of all the layouts. I basically use that as a what's happening to you right now. But a significator is a consciously chosen card that you put in that you now position. Now you can put something over it. Some people do that. But this significator is representing the seeker, okay, or the person asking the question. So it basically represents the situation at hand. Okay, so for example, say you're totally feeling overwhelmed with life. You have too much stuff going on. You're caretaking, you're going to work, doing all that stuff. You might choose the 10 of Wands for your significator. Maybe you're asking a question about your marriage or your relationship. You might pick the Lovers as your significator. In some spreads, like solstice spreads, for example, or equinox spreads, or like full moon spreads, you can use the card that represents whatever's happening. So for example, if you have a full moon reading, you might put the moon in the middle, just like this is what's happening. And then pull your where you are right now or your obstacle to the moon, as the next card. And so you can do that quite easily. Now, significators are great if you really want to represent that card and you also don't want it to show up other places. Okay. So maybe you're asking about a legal case, but you don't necessarily want to know, like you want justice right in the middle. You really want justice to be reigning in that situation. You might put justice as your you now. Now, a lot of people use court cards for significators because court cards represent people in the situation. So if you're doing a question about you, you would pick the court card that represents you. And that would be, for me, like I'm a Capricorn, so I'm an earth sign. And the earth sign is represented by the pentacles. And I'm a woman, so I would put the Queen of Pentacles. Now, say I want to do it about my psychic work. I might use the High Priestess, or I might use the Queen of Cups. Those are both representative of psychic women, okay? So if you're doing something about your child or a younger person, you would pick like a page or a knight. If you're a man, you would pick a king and then match it to your either your astrological sign or the way it's showing up. So the Knight in Shining Armor card is the Knight of Cups, for example. You might use that if you're like, I want my Knight in Shining Armor to come through, you know. Conversely, you can represent it like, so an older person who's suffering with dementia, for example, might come in as a Page of Swords because that's a younger mental state. Not that people with dementia are younger, but I mean that idea of like there is, you know, a different kind of mental maturity coming in. Okay. So, you know, since there are no people of color, non-binary people in the tarot, you can use some androgynously painted cards as a non-binary person, like Justice or the Hierophant. Okay. And there are some times when like I'm represented by a king, for example, like when I'm being authoritative or I am doing those traditionally solar kind of things like leading or being a boss or whatever. That doesn't mean women can't be bosses, but traditionally, you know, they're represented by kings. Okay. You got to kind of think of them more in terms of like, what do queens represent? Well, they come inward, right? They're feminine. So they are nurturing, loving. I keep making this gesture of like hugging or inward. They're a vessel, whereas kings are outward. So you'll think of it that way. If you are public speaking, you would be a king. You know, if you're loving someone, you're a queen. So you're kind of coming in and out with those, and you can think of it that way if it's easier instead of thinking of it on the like a genderized way. You know, I think it's really important to go with the card that you feel represents you. So, for example, if I were trying to decide if I were going to retire or not, I would use the 9 of Pentacles. If I were trying to decide if I was going to move, I might use the 8 of Cups or the 6 of Swords. Those are the moving cards. So you can see how that works out. Now, of course, when you pull them out and use them as significators, then you're not using them, you know, they're not going to be in the deck when you shuffle. They're not going to be coming up randomly. And a lot of people don't like that. You know, they want those cards that are going to be most representative of the issue to come up randomly in their, you know, reading so they can be like, oh, look, that's validation there, you know. So just some ways to think about significators. All right, the next question is, can you talk about how to create your own tarot layouts? How did you start doing that, and how do you recommend doing it? So just to kind of go back, like I really read tarot out of a book for a really, really long time. I mean, if I were to tell you, I've been off book for like 15 years or 12 years or something like that. It has not been that long. And even like when I started doing more off book, I would still have the book there like as a crutch. So it hasn't been like a terribly long time. I know that sounds long, but I've been reading tarot for 30 years. So, you know, half of the time I was looking at books, and I always use layouts from books. So my one that I always used was the Celtic Cross. That's like the oldest layout, I think, written down. And I like that one, and I like the Mystic 7, which is the cross, but not the staff. The last card that would be where the staff is just the outcome. So you kind of skip those 3 in the middle, and it's just a little tighter for shorter readings. Okay. So that being said, I think my first tarot layout that I created was the solstice and equinox spread. Now, winter solstice is very, very sacred to me. It's the day that my daughter died in 2008. And so I think that I was, you know, looking for, well, I know that after she died, I was looking for a lot of ritual because I didn't have a traditional connection to the church I was raised in, which was Catholic Church. I kind of had rejected that. So then I was sort of searching for religious and ceremonies and rituals. And I went to a lot of the traditional winter solstice rituals of release and like an honoring of the light and an honoring of the shadow and the darkness, was my whole traveling through grief. So when I started that layout, I basically was thinking about how do I talk about what I want to release and what I want to call in. And I created this solstice equinox spread, which I used at every solstice and equinox point. And it's very basic. It has the you, now, or your significator. And then basically like, what are you going to release that is in the past position? And what are you going to call in, or what's your way, to your intention in the right hand way. And then you have an over and under. So it had the basic structure of what the Celtic cross is. Now, if the Celtic cross is the one to study. So if you don't know the Celtic cross, study it. Look at different people's interpretations. There's the ancient Celtic divination method, which is what Arthur Waite put in his book, which is why we call it the oldest one written down, because he's basically the one that categorized it. Those positions make a lot of sense to me, okay? And I'm just going to talk about them briefly. You have right in the center is basically where you're at. So if you're using a significator, that's where it would go to indicate you. That's the position that indicates you. And then you have the obstacle, the challenge, or the tension that's happening right now. Does that mean that this is a terrible card for you? No, it's just the tension created in the present moment for you. And, I started using the word tension because obstacle sounds really harsh and challenge sounds harsh. And I think tension makes a lot more sense. It's not always that it's a total obstacle. It's just like, what am I contending with right now? What am I thinking about right now? What is the tension within me? And sometimes that's positive, sometimes that's difficult, whatever. So then you have on the horizontal axis of the Celtic cross, you have a past and an approaching. The past is on the left. The approaching is like basically your near future. Okay. And then you have over and under. And I like to think of this as like under is your unknown influence, the thing that's feeding you right now, the thing you can't really see because it's under you and it's giving you energy. And a lot of times it's the thing that you're not thinking about. Like maybe you're asking about work and then your mom comes up underneath. So what does that mean? It might mean like, oh, I'm kind of working with my mother's idea of work. Like, what did I learn from my mother about this thing? Or maybe it's that, your mom's funding it or something like that. So you're trying to like do things that she wants because she's funding it or something. We can think of it as a lot of ways, but it's something you're not consciously thinking of. Over everything is almost like your goal, the thing that you really want, the thing that's like projected out. Now, I tend to think of the vertical line, the under and over. If you think of where you are right now as the earth line, that's what you're walking on, right? You're walking from the past to the present to the future. That's the earth line. That's where you are right now. Under everything is like the soil, the roots, the thing that's feeding and pushing up into the now. You're not seeing the roots pull up water, pull up nutrients, pull up minerals, but it is. Okay, and then outward would be like the branches of the tree, the thing that everyone else sees, from even far away. They're seeing the leaves, the flowers blooming, all those things. So, this is your goal. This is what's under everything. And then when you look at the staff, you're looking at some just extra information. And, your bottom one is like your talents and resources, the thing that you can draw upon. And people are always like, oh, I got the tower there. Yeah, it means you're good in a crisis. You're good when everything comes down. You're okay at pulling down the walls. That's a positive thing. Your next card would be your surrounding environment. The next card is the guidance. And sometimes people use that as hopes and fears. I used to. Now I just use it as guidance because guidance is much more useful than knowing what my fears are. So sometimes that comes up, because your guidance is like, hey, watch out for this fear. Or, hey, keep this hope alive. But that guidance position is important. And the outcome is the final outcome of the question that you asked. Okay, now you have those 10 positions. And one of the things you can do is play with them, rearrange them, figure out what you need to know. If you know the Celtic cross, then you can start working within that structure. If you don't like the Celtic cross, then start with something you know, right? Like a rainbow, and think about that, What is the pot at the end of the rainbow? That would be your outcome, the thing you want. Where does it come from? Well, you're going to talk about the storm that created the rainbow. So you might use on the left-hand side the challenges that you've had. You might have what came up for you that was ready to be released, and then in the you now, you have where I'm at right now, so as you're going through the rainbow, you can kind of see how you could create that. I don't have that one. I'm just making it up on the fly, but that's important. You can use any layout that you already have and just change what you want to know. So first you got to figure out what you want to know. Hey, I'm worried about this day. And I always suggest this to my students. You have these 3-card layouts. There are so many options in the of 3-card layouts. Like if you look on Pinterest or in tarot forums, what do you use for 3-card layouts? Well, you could do past, present, future, which is what everyone does. Or you could do morning, afternoon, night, if you're looking about what's happening today. Or you could do, what I need to know, what I don't know, and what I have to know, something. You get to decide based on whatever your question is. And what I usually do is think about, what do I really want to know about this? And a lot of times it'll be around an event or around an idea. I'll think, okay, I had this one I really wanted to create for my tarot layout book, which is why is this card stalking me? Why do I keep getting the same card? So you find that card in the deck, and then I was basically asking, why do you keep showing up for me? And just having a dialogue with the card, or your guides or spirit, why do you keep coming up for me? I don't understand why you're stalking me. And just kind of what would I want to know from that card? In my book, I call it This Card Again spread, because that's kind of how I felt when I would keep getting the same card over and over again. So you put your stalker card right in the middle, the one that keeps coming up. Under it, it's what's the issue this card is here to talk about? Okay? Because sometimes cards show up and they don't mean the thing we mean. Which is why we can't interpret it. They have all these, every card in the tarot. So there's 78 cards. They have so many meanings within them. I mean, I would say each card has at least 6 meanings. You got the upright, you got the inverted, then you have what it means when you're doing a love reading, a career reading, a spiritual journey reading, blah, 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 health reading. Each of those have different meanings. So you can understand how complicated and why people get really stuck studying tarot. This is too complicated. I'd rather just do oracle cards. And exactly, oracle cards you can read, you look at the book, you get the message. It is not meant to be memorized. Whereas with tarot, it becomes a language that you learn. And so when you create layouts, you're basically creating the structure of the sentence that the language can be expressed in, if that makes sense. So, I'm asking, okay, this is the card that keeps stalking me. What are you here to talk about? Which aspect of my life? And then when I'm looking at that, I'm looking, is it a pentacle? Is it a cup? Is it a sword? Is it a wand? Is it a major arcana? Those things will tell me, okay, what does this mean? And then the real reason you keep getting this card, okay, we want to know. And then what are you not acknowledging about the card? And what I did was do this in an arrow shape. And the reason I did that was because I want to know, I want to get to the point, right? And so I think about that when I'm doing layouts. Everything on the left-hand side is going to be internal, releasing, blah, blah, blah. And everything on the right-hand side is going to be moving to the future, projecting out, those kind of things. So, it's what are you not acknowledging about this issue and why, it keeps coming up for a reason. What are you not acknowledging? And then how do you change the energies you stop getting this card? And then the outcome. Very easy. But I had to think about what would I really want to know? What am I asking this card? And so just getting clear on what you want to know is going to be the best way to figure out how to make a layout. And then you're just playing. Like this is the fun thing about tarot. There's a lot of structure. There's a lot of people. There's one way to do tarot. And if you're not doing it that way, you're doing it wrong. I'm the permission slip writer always, because I do believe things need to be adjusted, and they're your tools. And that's the problem with like staying to some structure, is that then you might not get the answers that you're seeking. And what's the whole point of doing tarot? You're trying to get to a truth. And you can't get there if you're following someone else's structure, because you have to ask the questions you have to ask. Now, I just dialogue with the cards. Why are you showing up here? Bam. What? And I just keep picking cards. I'll go through the whole deck asking questions and sometimes I use channeling that way. I'll kind of like connect with a guide and start asking the questions. Why are you here? Blah, blah, blah. And just keep asking. Every card is a new question. I do upright yes, reverse no, and the card meaning is a deeper answer to that. So say, why are you here? Are you here for me? Bam. Yes. I'm the temperance card. Oh, okay. You're here to help me balance. You're an angel. Okay. Got that. So I'm reading it for a number of different layers. And I mean, that might be, advanced level reading. I don't know. But to me, it's sort of like when you go to a religious place like church or synagogue, you learn all these prayers, right? And they're all rote, and you learn them. And sometimes we don't even think about the words. We just say them. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, blah, 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 blah. We learn them. Then there's other times we break them down. Why do I say our Father who art in heaven? One thing that was very freeing for me was when I saw Sonia Choquette talk about this being said in spiritualist churches as a chakra balancer. And so breaking it down, each line, what does it mean and why are we saying it? It's exactly the same in tarot. Why am I doing this layout? What do all these positions mean? And if you don't like a position, maybe just change the meaning of the position. And here's the kicker, whenever you do your own layouts, write it down beforehand, because you don't want to be in the middle. It's like, oh, maybe this was the guidance one instead of my hope. Make sure you write it down, because you don't want to second guess yourself after you pull cards. This is what this position is meaning before I pull the card right now. And just for this reading, I don't have to do it forever. And that's the freedom of it. But, the other part with the prayer analogy is, we learn these rote prayers, then we learn what they mean later, and we interpret them. And then later, as we get deeper, we realize I can just talk to God, or I can just talk to my higher power. I can just talk to spirit. And I can just say, what do you want me to know? And sit and listen for the answer. In tarot, we do the same thing. As you get deeper into working with tarot, it becomes less of an intellectual pursuit and more of a spiritual one. One that actually gets you in dialogue with spirit all the time. These are just the questions we're asking spirit. We're asking our higher self, if you're not, spiritual in that way. We're asking our deep wisdom, So, I totally recommend doing tarot layouts. Start small. Maybe you're going to do one for your birthday. Maybe you'll do one for the vernal equinox. What would you like to know about new beginnings? And read a little bit about equinox or Beltane or, anything. Maybe you're just reading for the beginning of spring. So beginning of spring has a lot of rebirth, a lot of new ideas. It's a great time to start intention setting. It's the start of the astrological calendar. So at some point, this was New Year. Think about, what would you want to know in spring? What's blooming for you? What you plant? What do you need to plant? Blah, 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 blah. Think about what you want to know, and that's where you start making your layout. So I hope that helped. All right, Becca asked a question that's about 3 months late, but I'm really sorry, Becca. But you can think of this as the astrological new year. That is there a certain day you suggest doing your tarot pull for the year? Any specific questions to ask? Well, it depends on your relationship with the new year. Okay. And this goes for anything, full moon, new moon. And that's part of the reason why I didn't feel the urgency to answer this, because I think you could put in for the year, you can put in anything for the new moon, for the full moon. Generally, I try to stay within that 3-day period of the full moon or new moon. But you technically can pull cards for events in the future. You can look at events in the past. So you really can pull your tarot for the year anytime you want. You're just setting the intention. So the question that you're asking is, what do I need to know about the new year, right? If you're someone who likes to set intentions or quote unquote resolutions, whatever it is that you do, you're going to gear your questions for your tarot pull around that. Now, there's a lot of great tarot pulls or tarot layouts that you can find on Pinterest or I use Pinterest a lot. I think a lot of tarot readers do, because there's a wonderful tarot community and they share their layouts that they've made. You can follow tarot readers on Instagram. They also will share layouts. I know I share layouts for full moons, new moons, different events, and I change them up. So you could do Google full moon in Virgo tarot layout, and you'll find someone who probably created a tarot layout for that. And so those kind of layouts are great because they give you questions already to ask. But for me, the things I ask, what do I need to know for the year? Like, what lessons did I have in 2022? For example, if we're talking about 2023, what lessons did I have? What's coming? What is my theme of the year? And I often will figure out my tarot card of the year. So I'll add my birthday, my birth month, and the current year's numerology. And you figure that out by adding all the numbers in the year. So this is a 2023 year, so we have a 7. So I would add 7 to my month. I'm a January baby, so that's an 8. So I'm a 1. That's a 1. So now I'm at 8. And then I add 4 more for my date of birth, my day. I'm January 4th, 1974. So January 4th, 2023, basically is what I'm adding together. And that happens to be 1, 5. 1 plus 4 is 5, plus 7 is 12. So, I'm in a hangman year. Yeah, I feel that. I really do. So you can pull that as your significator or as the beginning of your layout. And then, again, you can create layouts around this. You can kind of think about, what do I want to know? I have this layout in my complete tarot layout book that's called the altar. And I use that for so many things, but I use it to look at what my earth medicine is around a certain issue. Okay, so I'll think what do I need to know right now? What do I need to focus on? Because one of the problems I have as someone with ADHD is I have a lot of ideas and I have a lot of things I'm into. I'm never, ever short of hobbies. There's nobody who's going to be like, oh, Angie, she just doesn't do anything. I got crystals, I got plants, I got planting, gardening. I've got, earth shamanic interests. I love crossword puzzles. I take baths. I love to hike. I love to camp. I love to, I have so very many things. And then also in my business, I just have a lot of things I scatter out there. So I always need focus. What am I supposed to focus on? What does spirit want me to focus on? Not what Angie's ego wants me to focus on, but what does spirit want me to focus on? And I'll pull cards around it and kind of come up often with a word of the year. And that comes from some of the cards around it. So I use this altar layout for a lot. And when I use this layout, I use earth medicine cards. So I'll have animal cards, crystal card, I'll have a spirit guide cards, deck of cards. I'll have a plant medicine card. And so what I do is the layout is, what is the attention that, where do I need to put my attention, sorry. What do I need to release? And so I might change these as well based on what I'm pulling for. So if I'm doing so I'll do this pull a number of times during the year, just to change my altar and change up what I'm personally working on. Because I hold space for a lot of people. So my altar often is the earth medicine that I've pulled in the beginning of the month, because I'm not only working for it for me, but I'm working for everyone. And so I'll sometimes be I feel like this altar needs to shift and change. So I will do the altar spread. And then I'll do, what do I need to honor in myself? That's the next position. And this is almost a circle, but not quite. What is my unknown influence? That's the same position in the Celtic cross. I just move it over. And then the soul work I need to do right now, meaning what do I need to focus on for my spiritual, mental, emotional person? And then what my talents and resources are right now. And then a ritual. So I might use a ritual card. I might use one of my cycle deck, which basically has a ritual. And then my outcome. And then I'll pull 3 crystal cards. I'll pull an animal guide, a plant medicine guide, and a spirit guide card or a angel card or something like that. And those are the things I'll work with. And so I might make my grid with the 3 crystals that come up, or I might make a mojo bag, or I might put them in my medicine bundle. That's what I did recently. And then I went on a trip with my best friend Sharon, and we went to a crystal shop, and I got those little crystals that I pulled. Not that I didn't have them, but I wanted these new this new medicine to come in because I wanted new energy to come in. And then I created a medicine bundle from that. And in that medicine bundle, kind of have been working with that energy. And they're all upper chakra energy for me right now. So, you're asking the questions of things you want to know. And so you can do this at any time. And, thinking about doing it at the vernal equinox might be very helpful, because the beginning of spring is such a magical time to be doing year stuff, like setting intentions for the year and all that. So I'm excited about vernal equinox. I think it'll be a great time to kind of think about these things. Hope that helped, Becca. Okay, Julie Maletti asked me this question, and I love this question. Oh my gosh. She asked me on Instagram and I missed it. I'm so sorry, Julie, but here it is. Are there times when you don't do anything spiritual, tarot, meditation, earth medicine practices, etc.? Yes and no is my answer. Are there times I don't do anything spiritual? I mean, there are times I step away from a practice of mine that's like tarot, for example. My last journal was a 2-year journal. Prior to that, all my journals were 6 months, meaning I journaled every single day. And that was for 10 years. And the last 2 years, I remember forcing myself to write in my journal, I have breast cancer, because I hadn't been journaling regularly. It would be if I had a really vivid dream, I'd journal. If it was something where I was pulling cards, like a equinox or something that I needed some advice on, I would journal that. And I always journal all my, I don't pull tarot necessarily and not journal it. I always journal it when I pull. Well, I shouldn't even say that, because I do pull on my phone a lot and then I just save them. Do I look back? No, I don't look back generally. So I do that, on the fly, I'm in a doctor's office waiting for my appointment. I'll pull some cards, and ask a question. But, so I wasn't doing my regular journaling practice, for almost 2 years, and that just ended. So I've been more regular about it in the last year, this starting in 2023, because I was just so freaking busy. And I started it at the new moon in January, I think, is when I really started to knuckle down. Is that the phrase? Knuckle down? Buckle down? Buckle down. Oh my goodness. Buckle down and just do a regular tarot practice every day and sitting meditation. And I've been working my way through a book for my meditations because I'm kind of trying to go back to studying Buddhism a little more formally or informally by myself. But so, but there are times, I mean, I didn't do sitting meditation a ton last year. But when I say no, I also I pray every day. I do my prayer practice. I light my altar, I always have a grid going and I always send energy to it. I have like people that I'm sending healing to or praying for. I do that every morning. That's always something I do without missing. I do earth medicine practices all through the day. So I always have some kind of crystals on me that I'm wearing, crystals that I have in my pockets, crystals that I'm putting in my drink. You know what I mean? Or I use a lot of herbalism. So I'll basically be what's going on for me. I have, I want to work on the liver because I've been in pain. I've been taking some pain pill, some Tylenol or whatever. I will be working with liver detox herbs. So I have a lot of blends that I use already for stuff. I have a heart one, a liver one, a blood one, an allergy one, and a throat chakra one. I use those through the day. So I'm always taking in the earth medicine, the plant medicine, and I do a lot of walking outside. There's not really any time where I don't do some of these earth medicine practices because they're totally integrated into who I am. There's not a time where I'm I'm never doing that. But formally pulling tarot for me is really difficult because I pull tarot for a lot of people. And that's the challenge is when you do this stuff for other people over and over and over again, you don't do it for yourself as much. And it's terrible. But it's important to remember that we have to keep our own practice going. And, when I do all the things that I love to do, I feel like the flow is there. But doing that takes time. And it's that self-care time that we really have to carve out. And I'm not always great about that. Every night, because I have arthritis and neuropathy, I will take a bath with a magnesium and salts and then herbs in there and stones in there to help my legs. And when I don't do that, I don't sleep as well. I don't feel as well. I just don't, I use a really hot bath and really, sweat and let go of toxins and work on that kind of stuff. So, for me, I feel it when I don't do it. And so I like to come back to it when I'm not feeling great mentally or emotionally or, spiritually. So I feel sad when I don't do them. But yeah, there are times. But generally I try to stay pretty connected. It's my obligation to my clients. And I think that was part of what was slipping when I was super busy, wrapping up my work at Hibiscus Moon was I wasn't seeing clients. I was just kind of grading and doing, more office-y things. And that really gets to I didn't feel as spiritual while I was doing those things. When I know I'm going to go in and be teaching something, I spend all the time doing the ceremony and the cleansings and the blah, 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 because I want to be a clear channel and vessel for spirit to come through both my knowledge base and, what spirit wants to say. So I do feel like anytime I'm holding space for others, I need to be in a good, clear spiritual space. So I hope that answered your question. I really feel like understanding how your morning can go, how your day, morning sets me up for success. And one of the things that recovery's really given me is this wonderful adage of you can always restart your day. And what does that mean? For me, it means I can do all the things that work for me in the morning to reset myself. So if I'm, praying, meditating, sending Reiki, giving myself Reiki, working at my altar, setting my, thinking about my intentions and what I'm working towards, thinking about the medicine I'm going to work with. If I, sit in meditation, if I pull cards, I can do that at any point in the day to restart, because that feels like a fresh cleansing almost of my energy and realigning me with where I want to go. So that's why those things are so important. And I often will ask my students, especially my mentoring students, hey, what gets you back online? What do you do in the morning? What is your ritual? Well, how do you connect? And if you do all those things, then you know what's going to work for you. You have that in your thing. I tell people to write it down, have a place where you know what your rituals are and what works. So when you aren't feeling spiritual, when you aren't feeling connected, when you're feeling lonely, when you're feeling angry, lonely, all those things, you know how to reconnect and get back online, basically. So I hope that helped, Julie. Thank you for asking it. It was really such a lovely question. Thank you so much for listening to Centered. I wanted to let you know about some things coming up. So I have Vernal Equinox, Distance, Collective, Earth Medicine, Healing, which I've done before. They're attuning each person to a grid, doing a chakra balancing. In this one, I'm also doing cacao ceremony before, so that we can work into the heart for Vernal Equinox. Then I'll be doing another one at Beltane. I have a Q&A, that monthly Q&A coming up at the end of the month. That will be the last Wednesday of the month from 6 to 7:30 Eastern Standard Time. You can register online at themoonandstone.com. It's a very nominal fee, I think it's $10, but if you can't do it, just let me know and I'll register you without that. It'll be on Zoom. You can ask me questions live or you can pre-send them. All the information is on my website. I'm also seeing clients for one-on-one healing sessions, tarot, distance healing. So I see people in the central Pennsylvania area at Altaview Wellness Center on Jonestown Road in Harrisburg. For those that are further away, I do distance sessions, and I do recorded sessions, meaning I set the intention for you to get the healing whenever you either hear it or at a time when you're sleeping and can be receptive, and I tape it, and then you can play it back and also get healing at that time. So just know there's lots of options if you're in other parts of the world. I mean, I have clients that are in New Zealand and Australia and, South Africa. And so I've worked with a lot of different time zones. So don't be afraid to ask me about that. I also have a membership group, and I do readings at the new moon, the full moon. I do a shamanic journey every month for my members. We work with earth medicine, and then I do a weekly coffee and chat Q&A. So what I do is I basically will either pull cards or we'll talk about something. It changes every week based on what we're all feeling like we want to do. And there's lots of stuff in my shop. I'm doing a lot of classes as I'm coming through there. So the Complete Tarot is coming. I right now have Holding Space, Ethics, and Trauma-Informed Healing available in my shop. I am going to be doing a class, my mentoring circle. I'm currently accepting people for the advisory group, which would be people who are working in healing or who want to be working in healing, as almost like a support group to talk about healing and ethics and boundaries and how to get started and how to keep going with your practice. There's going to be one in tarot and one in body, energy healing. So just send me an email at Angie@themoonandstone.com. But just go to themoonandstone.com, look under events and classes, offerings, shop. All of those places are going to have the things that I'm offering. I'm also working on a class on cycles. So working through the cycle of the year, cycle of the day, cycle of the month, the moon cycles, to kind of talk about how to work with that energy. I taught this class in person at Altaview a few years ago, and I'm really excited to be offering it online. Plus, my classes from Hibiscus Moon are slowly going to be dripping out, and you'll be able to buy them there. So just check everything out, and I'm so happy to be offering things to you. Oh, about my membership group too. That's a very small fee, but you will belong to my Facebook group, and I answer questions there. And, really, it's a very engaging, awesome community of energy healers and tarot readers, and we just really have fun with it. So I really hope to see you there, and thank you for following my podcast.
Thanks for listening to Centered with me, Angie Yingst. If you'd like to send me a question or comment about this show or any shows, you can send them to Angie@themoonandstone.com.